Gosh, one of my all-time favorite records from the late 90s on this fancy playlist at number 22, down from number 2. Now, that's a big drop, but that didn't mean I loved it any less. It's just one of those things that happened. I might have done it by accident. 22, New Radicals, Get What You Give on my fancy playlist of February the 6th, 1999. New Radicals. Greg Alexander, he was the front and center guy of this group. Basically, he played all the instruments, or at least most of the instruments. He produced, he wrote all the songs for this album. The album was called Maybe You've Been Brainwashed Too. Now, it gets a little complicated about this band. I don't want to go into it too much because I'll have to read a little bit more about it. But the only other permanent member of this band was a former child actress. Her name was Danielle Boaz, it's Brisebois. I'm sure I mangled her last name really bad. And if she's watching this video, I apologize. I'm sorry. I should have checked the pronunciation before I jumped into this video. But Greg Alexander, he started out as a solo artist. He put out a couple of albums in the late 80s, early 90s. First solo album was called Michigan Rain. That was in 1989. And in 1992, he put out another album called Intoxifornification. Okay. That sounds kind of like a political or social statement. Kind of grungy, don't you think? 1992. And that was in 1992, but they were not very successful. He formed New Radicals around 1997. They got a deal with MCA Records. MCA Records, they gave them an advance of $600,000 to produce their one and only album, New Radicals. And the album was called Maybe You've Been Brainwashed Too, indeed. Name of the album. You Get What You Give. The song, boy, here's the thing about this record. This is a radio-friendly record. This has got a juicy melody to it that just clings to you. It sticks in your mind. You can't get it out. You fall in love with it. But you don't have to look far down beneath the music to note the anger, the angry lyrics. This guy is pissed. Now, there are several approaches to this. You might remember Rage Against the Machine. This is about as angry, seriously. This is about as angry as anything that Rage Against the Machine had put out back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Or maybe somebody like Limp Bizkit or POD. But the difference is these groups, they poured their anger out into a raw, alternative hard sounding records. But Greg Alexander, he channeled his anger and he shoved it into just a scintillating pop melody, almost a sweet pop melody. It fools you into thinking that, hey, this is a great record, man. I love this record. This is a nice record. But when you listen to the lyrics, it's like, oh my God, this guy, he's mad. He's very angry. You Get What You Give by Greg Alexander. The video was shot at Staten Island Mall in New York. Greg Alexander picked this site because he thought that shopping malls was the perfect metaphor for society. Shopping malls, they were fake, controlled environments that encouraged spending, in his view. And he just, once again, in that video, there's a lot of chaos in this video as he pours his anger out. And you think, God, this guy's he's a young punk rocker. But I got to tell you something, Greg Alexander's a lot more than that. This guy moved on as a major producer and writer. The group broke up in 1999. There was a lot of controversy around this album, around this song, and Greg Alexander got tired of all that. But since then, he's worked with people like Ronan Keaton, who was popular in England back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Jerry Halliwell, he worked with her, former Spice Girl, Enrique Iglesias, and also Texas, who was popular in England in the late 90s and to the early 2000s. She had a couple of great records out, I remember, back in the late 90s. And but with Rick Noel, Greg Alexander wrote Game of Love, that scintillating pop classic by Santana and Michelle Branch. Christmas of 2002, I was enraptured with that song, that video. That was one of the best pop records ever. Game of Love by Santana. Michelle Branch really laying on those nice female vocals, written by Rick Noel and Greg Alexander. How about that? Anything else I need to mention about Greg Alexander? Tell me, speak to me. Chart positions. Gosh dog it. Number 36 on Billboard's Hot 100. Give me a break. What is wrong with this country? This should have been top 5. Although MTV did have it in hot rotation. I remember that vividly. Late 98, early 99. Did go to number 1 in New Zealand, number 1 in Canada as well. Number 22 on my fancy playlist of February 6, 1999. New Radicals, You Get What You Give.